How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I wanted to talk about manufacturing machine states. So I was working for a project for a client, and what I realized is that once you start extracting data for any purpose whatsoever, you often run into the challenge of understanding the different states within their equipment. And of course, depending on the manufacturer or the machine builder, some of it may already be programmed in, but in a general sense, you do want to set up something that's going to be compatible between different vendors for a specific end user or manufacturer. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the challenges of extracting some of these machine states. I'm going to, of course, define what kind of machine states there could be for a specific manufacturer. I'm also going to explain some of the nuances as to why you might get more granular or less granular depending on your specific situation. But it is a very common challenge that you need to overcome as you start tying in multiple machines together, as you're starting to get data for OEE or MES type of systems. Extremely important. So let's start with the basic machine state definition. What is it? Why does this matter? How do we actually use it? Well, if you have a production line, right? So once again, I'm going to create a drawing where, for example, you have a filler followed by, let's say, a capper. Right, so a capper which puts the cap on top of your bottle. Next, you have, for example, a labeler, right? And you can have this in many different industries. This is not necessarily just food and beverage. It can also apply to your process side, which feeds into the filling machine. But basically, each one of the machines or assets is going to have a state when it comes to the industrial automation side. So in this case, for example, your filler in a normal state is running. And of course, if you want to be a bit more specific for the type of a filler, it could be filling, right? So it could be filling, the capper could be again capping, but the state itself is the machine is running. What does running actually mean? Well, it means that there's no issues, right? Or no major issues, no issues. And it's performing the task, so performing the task. And so this becomes important because as you start having discussions with the engineering and the maintenance and the data teams, these definitions become key in understanding where the not only bottlenecks are, but the opportunities for improving your facility are, right? So next, let's talk about the state of stopped, right? So stopped is going to be the one that most will understand. So stop the machine means it's not running. But I will also, I will say not running, but I will also say that there are no issues, or at least no immediate issues that need to be addressed for the machine to be transitioned from stopped to running, right? So if the start button, so start push button is pressed, and of course that could be on your HMI or your SCADA system. Again, we're going to spare some of the nuances, but the machine is able to transition from the stopped into the running state. Now, of course, there's going to be also different specifications and different bodies that will specify some of these stages. So if you take a look at PACML as an example, so PACML was originally developed for the packaging industry that will describe each one of these steps, what they actually mean, and some of the possible transitions between the states. So now as we take this a step further, right, so you can also, for certain machines, you have a ramp up period, right? So for a filler, generally speaking, it's just going to start running. It's going to maybe take a couple of seconds, but there's going to be machines that will, let's say, rehome some of your servo motors. There's going to be machines that need to get up to temperature. There's going to be machines that will have different control systems for your PIDs before they start operating. So in this case, you can also have a state in between, which is called starting, right? So in this case, the starting state does not necessarily mean that the machine is producing product, but it does mean that it is getting there. So this transition, again, do you care about this transition? Well, again, it depends on the industry. It depends on the cost. It depends probably on the duration of that specific transition state. So in the reality, when you press the start push button, your machine is going to go from stopped to starting, and then from starting, if everything is correct, to running. And so again, my goal here today is to simplify some of these steps so this can be extensiated even further, but we're not going to get into all of the details. If you have questions, if you're curious, maybe what makes sense for your process, send us a message or leave us a comment and we'll expand on that. But basically, you can then build out more steps. And what are the common steps that I personally have deployed? Well, I would say that a faulted state is extremely important. So faulted. And faulted means it is both stopped and it has a condition that needs to be resolved before it can be put into production. And so again, on the industrial automation side, this is within your PLC. There's going to be a fault code. It's going to be displayed on the HMI. But we all need to agree that faulted means it is not allowed to run. So it is not running, and is not allowed to run, until fault cleared. Right, and this is an important, again, distinction, because as you build out your data and MES capabilities, you can then have tangible conversations with a variety of different stakeholders and explain to them how much time your machine on the plant floor within a given hour, shift, week, or even month has spent in the faulted state, in the stopped state, in the running state, in the starting state, which becomes very important for investing in equipment, for assigning, for example, maintenance personnel. So if my filler is not running, that means that my capper and my labeler are probably also not going to run. Therefore, I should invest a lot more capital into making sure that the filler is running as expected before I address anything else. Similarly, we now once you start having multiple machines within a linear sequence, right? So the filler creates the bottles, then the bottles get capped, then the bottles get labeled, then they get case packed and palletized. Well, if the filler is not producing for a variety of different reasons, it could be because it is always faulted, it could be because it's stopped due to lack of materials, but the capper is going to have 0 bottles at the infeed, and it also is not going to produce. And it's possible that it is in a state of running, right? So it has no issues. It is performing the task, but in this case, it is not performing the task because it is lacking the in-feed materials. So it is not running, it is basically starved. So starved is a case that I would use very frequently, especially in linear machines, because machines need different inputs. And so in this case, your capper is taking one input from the filler, and it probably is taking another input, which is the caps. Right, so you have usually a large bin of caps that are going to be feeding. Again, there's going to be different designs. It could be a conveyor belt. It could just be a rail guided system. But basically the capper has 2 infeeds, which is the filler as well as the caps. And so if you're looking to understand the data, and if you look at a chart, which could be a Gantt chart, or it could be just a graph for a specific shift, you could say, well, if we have lacked caps during that specific shift, it means that the operator had not had time for a variety of different reasons to put the caps in, or maybe because the filler did not produce for the capper, which is a completely different issue. But once you have the data and the understanding, that's when you can start making tangible business and plant floor decisions. Similarly, if you have the filler that's going to fill up this conveyor belt, and hopefully you have a prox on either side, right? So there's going to be a prox here, there's going to be a prox there. It can be implemented with an array, of course, and again, that's a separate discussion. But imagine that you have a prox that stops when this conveyor is completely full. So whenever you have a certain number of bottles, you have a filled conveyor, therefore the filler is no longer pushing out the bottles, because otherwise it's just going to cause an issue downstream. So in this case, the filler is what's called backed up. So backed up is a state, so backed up, the machine is ready to produce, but it is unable to do so because it cannot discharge the final product to its destination, right? And so in this case, the machine is ready to run, but it is not producing because the discharge conveyor is blocked. Now, this is of course programmed within your PLC, and the programmers that go through these transitions and implement these states need to understand how to display some of that information to the either operator, to some of the stakeholders at the management or executive side, so they can understand what's actually happening on the plant floor. But nothing can be done until we agree on what these states represent and how do we get that data from the plant floor into a system that can display some of this historical information. Of course, if an operator is looking at the filler on the plant floor, maybe they would like a stack light, right? So if a stack light would tell them that the machine is running with a green light, that is perfectly fine. If it sees that it is, for example, faulted, maybe it's a red light. If it's backed up, maybe it's a yellow light, because at that point they need to look over at the capper and figure out what the issue is within that conveyor that is preventing the filler to run. So in any case, that is all that I wanted to share in this video. As I said, there's going to be some transitional state. There's going to be some programming that happens once you go into a faulted state. There's going to be, of course, non-obvious system transitions that you can also capture, and you can take this to a whole other level. But I would say that this is pretty much the basic number of states that I would expect to see within a manufacturing facility in different verticals. Of course, this applies, as I said, to process in slightly different ways. Once you're working on a batch system, that's going to also transition between different states, but not necessarily as cleanly or as abruptly as you will see more on the discrete side. If you have any questions, if you're confused by any of this information, if you would like more clarification on what these states actually mean, I plan on making a couple more videos showing you the actual implementation on the PLC side when it comes to these states, how to pull them out, because again, it is not trivial information to be able to look at a machine that hasn't had these states defined and then be able to clearly spell out the conditions and transition that into your logic and your data aggregator and your historians. So don't hesitate to reach out, leave us a comment. Maybe you have a different perspective. Maybe you have used PackML as well and have some opinions on that side. Curious to hear what your experience is telling you, and we'll see you next time.